Hello, Alice. Today we're going to be going on a different kind of adventure, and it's going to begin with a rabbit hole. So, you might actually need a lunch, a snack, grab something to drink for this discussion. This is going to be a little bit different than we normally do, and I think I may have to do more than one of these videos or follow up or whatever. Yeah, this is not the video that I wanted, planned for, or expected to be doing with you today, but I got a pretty strong encouragement to do so. So I'm going to follow that. Now, I have mentioned in other videos that I live by intuition. I may have mentioned this if we've chatted before. The truth about me is that I have sort of extrasensory perceptions. It's not something that I lead with for many reasons, but for the purpose of today, you need to know that, I guess. So that comes through in different ways. I'm a seer, I'm a reader, I'm a conduit, meaning I can pull in energy, information, receive information, and put it into words to share. I am not special. I'm just a hollow bone. Okay. So that's what that is. I also receive information through dreams. So take it or leave it, whatever. I hope that you'll still stay and follow this video. If you have questions for me about that, I would be happy to elaborate. But whatever. Okay. Okay, so the current events of what are happening right now, I think, are what are uh, making me feel the need to share this information today. I have shared this in private with people who I'm close to, but never publicly. And so that's that. Okay, so I'm just gonna jump right in and just start talking. 2020, the truth about 2020. Okay, 2020 was the end of the world as we know it. Okay. um all this stuff about rapture and who's coming back and all of these things. 2020 was a massive reset, and there were a lot of distractions that happened with that. But for many people, people were affected in different ways, right? And just to elaborate on that, while I was in the city, I was living in Las Vegas, everything closed down. We didn't have exact access to education. The schools were closed down for a really long time. We did not have access to things like daycare. A lot of us had no choice but to be on um what is that called? Where we were getting money from being out of work. I can't remember the word for it. While what I was seeing in that time frame was that the casinos were running, we were still getting tourism. However, at the back end of things, where the society actually resides, okay, because a lot of people don't realize everybody that lives in Vegas doesn't actually live on this strip. We live in, we have neighborhoods and houses. um we had a different separate life than the tourism that was still being allowed, and this caught my attention. We could not go to the grocery store at certain times, only certain people could go at these times. We were limited on the groceries that we could buy, all these different things. Now, when this prompted me to move to Tennessee, and I'm going to try to be quick about this part because this isn't as important, but um this realization that I had of how much society had control over the way that we were living was a big light bulb. And I think for the off grid homesteading community, this was an awakening moment. And this is why I say, life, the end of the world as we know it, okay, for a lot of us, because a lot of us had an awakening during this time. There's a lot of spiritual people who call it an awakening, an aha moment. We need to be more self sufficient. However, you want to describe that for yourself. Most of us had stuff like that. A lot of people didn't, though. Okay. When I moved here to Tennessee, the intention was to purchase a piece of property and start my homestead to be self-sufficient. Never did I plan on being off grid, okay? This is important. Um Now, here in Tennessee, what I'm finding when I talk to people is that they did not have the same experience that I had back in the city. Now, I don't live far, far from a city. However, these people here, I would say, are much more conservative and patriots, is what I would call them, in the sense that it seems that they stand in their power when it comes to certain things. And what I mean by that is, it seems to me, from what I understand, they really put their foot down and said, no, we're not shutting down everything. We're not going to stop working. We're not going to stop going to school. Like, no, we need to get back to real life. Whereas the city, it seems like we had other governing factors, okay, that did not allow us to do that. So this is my observation. It doesn't mean that it's bulletproof, okay, but this is what I'm observing, which is just food for thought. um okay, so my intention when coming here was to be have the homestead and stuff like that, because what was happening when we were going through this process was, we were being told that we couldn't visit with our neighbors. We couldn't go do anything. They were told that if we had friends or family over more than 6 people, to call law enforcement. We could get in a lot of trouble for that. So, what a lot of us were doing was we were spending a lot of time outside. This prompted me to start an outdoor camping group. This is when I've always been a camper, but this is when this was really, really put into place for me. Now, I was following my intuition and guidance that I was being provided with doing this. I needed to learn how to start a fire. I needed to learn more about being self sufficient. I started saving seeds, which I've shared with you guys. I have a huge bag of seeds. A lot of people uh went and got online, started buying a lot of heirloom seeds, things like that. In the people in this mindset, other people, it wasn't for them. They did not follow the same path. But for a lot of us, and the people who I feel that I'm connecting with in this video with that intention, and the reason why I need to make this video, would be the people who did do that. Okay. So this video is not going to be for everybody. I am aware of that. That said, um, getting those things together, learning how to, using the kayak, learning how to fish, making sure we had fishing stuff, all of these things started to happen right in my own life, and it was an intuitive guidance. Do these things. I was not following my intuition when I moved here. My intuition told me to purchase property in the desert. There was a specific reason for that, and I'm not going to share that today, I don't think, unless I'm guided to do so. However, there is a reason why there is a big faith based community that is going to the desert. My choice to move here to Tennessee was out of logic, not following my intuition. So I just want to be clear about that, okay? Which is why I have a pull to go back, because I feel like that is where I'm supposed to be. Okay. Okay, so in 2020, I ended up doing a reading with a friend of mine. We wanted to figure out some of the stuff. And I don't always do world event readings, but in this situation I did. And what I saw was that there was going to be a breakdown of structures that were no longer working. These were governmental structures, education structures, judicial structures, medical structures. The main governing structures needed to be broken down and rebuilt. And I was shown this because the fall of past societies, the fall of past kingdoms, and there's another word for it, but I'm not going to get hung up on that, okay? Is due to people not wanting to move forward with the times. They wanted to keep everything the same. What I was shown, and now, especially now, and why, again, I feel like I'm being guided to create this video right now, is that we are at 250 years of America. There's a lot of discussion about this currently happening. This is our 250 years. And I want you to think about how much of our governing structures are based on what they set in place 250 years ago. Okay? So just something to consider. Now, what I've also came across, and this is just a side note, but what I've came across recently is Arizona, New Mexico area was one of the first established areas in the United States. And there's a video on that. If I come across it again, I will go ahead and share that below. I will try to do that anyway, but that was super interesting. I'm learning about the history of where I'm going because I think that that's important, and I'm not going back to Nevada. Okay, I'm following my intuition with what I'm the knowledge, okay? Um that being said, this is not a political video whatsoever, okay? But what we are seeing right now, when you take feelings and emotions out of it and look at the big picture, is what is happening on the large, excuse me, on a large scale of things, is that the governing structures are being broken down. Basically, it's like we're taking everything out of the closet to reorganize it and put it back in place. Now, there's different perspectives on this. I am a completely neutral party. What you need to know is I do not watch the news. I am not one side or the other when it comes to politics. I'm not any of those things. I am neutral, okay? So it's really important for you to know that, because this is not coming from one way or the other. But what is happening in a large scale is that those structures are being broken down piece by piece. What is true is that our society, any society, does not like the change that happens when we have to do that, which is why many societies in history did not. Okay, because people would revolt, people would get angry, there would be issues with that. The changes that would happen with that, people didn't like that. They want things to be predictable. Things are very unpredictable for the majority of us right now. Okay, we're feeling offset. The energy is off. We're not sure what to do with what's happening. We don't. Some people really are go, extremely one way, extreme another. In the bigger scheme of things, the structures are being broken down. Some of that does have to happen, but not because I say so, but because maybe just look into history repeating itself, okay? So if that's for you, and I am open to people's thoughts and things like that. Please don't make it political. Please try to keep a neutral perspective for the sake of um knowledge seeking and not being extreme one way or another, okay? Okay, so all of those structures had to be broken down, okay? Now, what is happening currently is we're seeing a lot of the backlash and offset from that happening. And I guess as of today, right, there's some discussions about, okay, so just point blank, like, I came across this video yesterday. I was watching the lady. I've already made a video on apocalypse stuff. I'm here to for it. Like, I wouldn't say I'm a doomsday person, but it's definitely there. Okay. And which is the purpose of me wanting to be self-sufficient. Okay. Uh, this lady was talking about all of the different things, and I was totally following along with her. She's got all of her pantry behind her. She's stocked up, she's ready, she's canned, she's good to go. Everything is good. However, she was doing a live, and her piece of advice was, go get your money. Go get your money out of the bank. Okay? And I'm like, whoa, like, you lost me. And I shut it off. Okay? We are getting off track when it comes to that stuff, and what that does is create wide fear panic. All right, here in the South, when there's going to be any kind of storms, any kind of crazy stuff going on, potential of shutdowns, tornado warnings, snow warnings, hurricane warnings, people go to the store and they buy bread and milk. The meat isn't sold out. The sandwich meat is still there. The peanut butter and jelly is still there. I don't know what they're doing with the bread and milk. I am at a loss. Nothing else is sold out. It's not eggs. It's not any of those things. It's bread and milk. Okay? What ends up happening with that, first of all, is like, what are you making? Like bread cereal? I don't know. But what ends up happening with that is these people go and overbuy, they overtake, they pull out, right? And then the people who just need basic necessities because they don't have the money to stock up on anything, they just need a loaf of bread to make peanut butter and jelly for their kids and a bottle of milk because they have $20 left to their name. They don't have access. Okay. So when we go and we pull all of our money out of the account like that, people who are just trying to cash their checks, or whatever, like the bank is like, it can create offset. Now, I'm not a professional in this area. Okay. I'm not a financial advisor, but it creates a massive amount of offset. And that can be what causes shutdowns, causes changes in the stock markets. Don't listen to these people, all right? First of all, if everything shuts down, money isn't going to do you any good. There's no store, there's no product to purchase with the money, okay? So you can do that if you want, but you need to focus on other things, okay? Hear me out. All right, so off grid for me today means something different than it might have before. Yesterday, I was watching a video on this guy doing solar. I'm trying to learn how to do solar because it's not something I really know how to do. And I'm watching this video, and he has this huge solar investment. Really lovely setup, but he's got about 15-20 batteries in his unit, in his shed, and he goes in there and all the batteries have bubbled up, deeming them all worthless. They have bubbles on them. He can't use them. They're not safe. And so he's pulling all the batteries out. Out of all those batteries, he's saying, I can keep 2, but I have to totally undo all of this because my batteries aren't worthy, aren't useful, I can't do anything with them. Okay? You can put up solar right now. Solar might be the answer. Okay? But in the event that there's no stores and your money is useless, what are you going to do? Guys, we need to take it back. We need to go back to like 1700s. We need to think that. What was off grid? What does that mean? It means taking it all the way back to the old days. It means the people that you're building community with, the neighbors that you have, the people you're connecting with are really important. They're important because all of us have different skill sets, okay? This is where you need to focus on what your genuine skill sets are, okay? So we need to have candle makers. We need to be around people. And in this part of my life, okay, I've always been considered an unconventional person because I did go to college. I went to trade school. I went to school for cosmetology. I also was in healthcare for 12 years, but I've learned how to do all these different things that in the society that I live in doesn't matter at all. But in another type of society, I could potentially be a great asset. And that's what I want you to consider, okay? What is your biggest asset in the event that something did happen like this, okay? Because there's a lot of concern about this. And there's been a lot of concern about this since 2020. Long before that, even, there's been people who have been living off the land for way longer than that. They have been feeling like things were wrong, and they're probably right. They have had a lot of time ahead of the rest of us to get on board, and maybe some big event doesn't happen, but we're just able to be self-sufficient, where we're not paying other people to live and be within society. For example, just a quick side note, I have a 15-year-old. My 15-year-old is being pushed to decide what he wants to do at 18 years old. Where is he going to college? Majority of people that I know, I just turned 41, okay? The majority of people that I know are not doing what they went to college for at 18 years old. They're not doing that. Okay, they had an aha, they had an awakening moment at some period in their life, and they're not doing that. I have a friend who has decided to be an attorney. She went through all this schooling. She was in school back when we were 19, okay, for all these different things. Then later she decided to be an attorney. She now has $200,000 still left on her loans to pay off at 40 years old. Okay, we get trapped in this matrix. And this is what I mean by unconventional. Am I? Am I unconventional? Because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be that person. I'm not somebody who's going to go spend $50,000 on a wedding when that could have been a down payment for a property. Okay? Majority of people that I know are not doing what they chose to do at 18 years old, yet they still have the student loans to pay off. So I would not guide my child to do that. I would guide my child to go to a trade school, because majority, like here in Tennessee, if you're a resident here in Tennessee, you can go to trade school for free. Okay? Uh that is an asset. That's a huge asset to have. Plumbing, carpentry, things like that. You're going to need that. You're going to need that if we're on grid or off grid. And that's what I'm talking about. What skills do we have? Okay, so for me personally, I can cut hair. I know a lot about working within the medical system. I was also a dental assistant. Okay, I most recently, I grew up on a ranch, okay, but most recently, while I've been here in Tennessee, I have been guided to learn about natural living stuff. I make candles. I make natural skincare products. I've learned how to dehydrate food, although that isn't I'm not great at it. So I would want to be around people who have in a community, have are resourceful and have something to bring to the table. Maybe that is somebody who's a great helping hand, okay? And as I connect with people who are like-minded, I see this coming to fruition in this sense. These people are a helping hand. They're really self-sufficient. They're able to build stuff. They know how to measure. They have a saw, not a battery operated saw, but maybe they can use another saw. Not that battery operated is a problem, but if we were to be off grid and have no way to have actual power, would we be able to survive? So you're going to want to know people who live in the woods. Can they access some wood for you to have for your wood burning fire or to be able to build? Trade. Trade is going to be important. Do you know a hunter that you can trade something with them and be able to have meat? Or do you know how to forage? Do you know a forager that you could be able to trade your, hey, I'll come and help you build this if we can trade for that? Okay. I learned a lot about this from watching the Alaskan bush people. They've been a huge inspiration for me, and even now they have their own channels after that show ended. But I learned a lot from them on true off-grid self-sufficiency. And so if you're not familiar with them, they are fantastic. They wonderful. I adored their show, and so shout out to them because man, they were really great. Um anyway, okay, so I'm gonna move forward a little bit here. So batteries aren't gonna matter as much. No, no, no. You have to go around. Please go that way. Beep, beep, beep. Back, back. Excuse me for 1 second. Back up. Good job. Can you go around? You can go around. You can come and sit with me, but you gotta go around. Go. You're almost there, buddy. Keep going. Lucky has hip dysplasia and he has a hard time turning around. So we do the beep, beep, beep. It does help. He'll tell you. Okay, so batteries aren't going to matter if we don't have any storage or power, right? So we need to think back like the 1700s, okay? Now, um, having things like food, neighbors who are helpful, neighbors who are resourceful, things like that, you're gonna want to connect with people like that. Now, I have been having some dreams lately, right? And you know this if you've been with me for a little bit. I talked about this dream about 90 days off grid. Off grid was never my intention. I had zero intention of that. When I came here to Tennessee, that wasn't the first thing on my mind. Know how to do it, know what to do, whatever, be able to be self sufficient if you need that. But that was not my plan. After the last couple dreams that I've had recently, I'm starting to believe that there may be an indication of a 90-day mark for some reason that may not just be for me. And especially because I was really pushed to talk about this with you today, that you might need to know that. Okay. I've also been getting a lot of information about distractions. I had a dream about this the other night that there were a lot of distractions. And in that dream, there were a couple people from a certain community that I have been guided to keep away from, not to engage with, not to connect with in any shape or form. And they were a big part of this dream. Uh, the word that I got was remediation. When I say this wasn't like, oh, I just had a dream and then I woke up. No. I went to sleep and the stream started. I woke up numerous times, went back to sleep, and it continued and continued. Okay, there was something to this. Okay, so for someone out there, please pay attention to the kind of people you're connecting with. Are these people taking your ideas? Are these people really beneficial to you? Are they really encouraging you? Are they trying to get more of what you have? Are they using you as a source? Be mindful of that because this is something that you're going to need to know. Who are you surrounding yourself with? What do they bring to the table? or are they looking at your table? Okay? Really, you need to pay attention to this. And if you have a feeling that somebody is not there in the right way for you or something's off, pay attention to that. But think, if you were back in the 1700s, would these people be helpful to you? And I'm just saying, as a community, would these people be helpful for you? Are they really a helping hand? Are they ones who have abilities, and are they woodworkers? Are they like I said, the helping hands, the people, those good people who are just willing to jump in and they don't want anything for it. They're just really willing to help you. Like, who are you surrounded with? Okay? You need to pay attention to that. Um, the other thing was that last year, um, I did another reading and it was for current times at that time. And what I got was that there was going to be an upset. I'm not going to say the word, but I will say that it had to do with another country and a lot of upset about that. It doesn't give me, I don't get exact details because the details of it aren't necessarily important. However, what I did see was destruction. And I'm not saying that everything is going to be dismantled. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. It didn't matter for what I was viewing. It was just saying that there was going to be disruption and that there was some female leader that was going to be important. I don't know who that is, but what I will say is that it was kind of the fact that it came up for me asking about current events at that time a year ago lets me know that potentially this was in alignment or already kind of in play back then. Again, I don't watch the news. I don't keep up with that stuff. So you might know what that means. I don't. All I know is that I was asking about current events and it was coming up, but now we're seeing what was actually coming up happening, which indicates again to me that there was something about what we're experiencing right now that was already on the chessboard. And I don't know. Okay, so maybe you do. I don't. Um, so what should you be doing right now? The best thing that you could possibly do right now is have land. Okay? Have land that belongs to you, that you're or working on buying, whatever. Do not have any panic within you. Don't be afraid. Don't do anything like that. But if you even a fourth of an acre of property that you could settle in for yourself, or you know someone that does, look out for that. There is property for sale. There's plenty of it. There never get into a lack mentality. Never do that because then your decisions are based off fear. Never do that. Okay, so always come from a mindset of there is plenty. Ask and you shall receive. Okay, ask, please guide me to where would be the right place for me, and then follow your intuition. Okay, follow if you see an ad pop up for maybe some property, or it leads you over here and you kind of see something and it feels right to you here, then maybe follow that. Okay, so follow your intuition. If you are somebody who needs help understanding how to do that, connecting with that divinity of what we are all gifted, please let me know because I might be able to help with that. Okay, but having land, having food. Now, I did do a video on apocalypse food already, which is basically just add water food. That's probably one of the best things that you can do for yourself is have a stockpile of yes, all of the canned food, all of those things are great. That's a smart thing to do also. But if you have freeze dried food, if you have, just add water food, things like noodles and things that are easy for you, that's a really good idea. You need to have access to water. Um, Not bottled water. That's good to have in store, but you need to think about longer term than that. Okay. So if you don't have water directly available to you, what might be an option for water stores? So you can get, I think there are iodine tablets. You can look it up online. I know they have them on Amazon, even if you're not an Amazon buyer. Maybe do some research on how to clean the water. I have some filters that are usually good for like 500 gallons or something like that. And also how to boil water. Okay, boil it and then filter it, or even going a step further and making a very large filtration system. Look that up, okay? And then have kind of an understanding, is there a lake by where you live? Um, is there running water, natural water source by where you live? So look into that. Land, food, uh, like lighting options. Okay, so if you were not able to have gas, if you were not able to go purchase things at a store, what might you do? Do you have candles? Do you have things that you make candles? I can make candles. I have the stuff to do that. I can make, and not enough to last me the rest of my life for sure. But do you have friends and community people who do stuff like that? Who's around you? What kind of people are around you? And who is part of your community? Okay, so now might be a good time to think about that. Dried food, things like jerky, things like that. Now, here in the South, I don't know, in the apocalypse video, I talk a lot about Winco. I am not associated with Winco. I am a fan of Winco, but the reason why I am is because they have bins that you can go get stuff right out of the bins, which costs a boxed food or already packaged food, but it also is good for storing for a long period of time. So I am a big fan of Winco, and it is more on the west side of the country. For some of you, that might be a couple-hour drive. For the south and the eastern side of the country, I haven't found a store that offers what Winco does. It is worth making the trip to have some flour. They do have things like dried meat, for freeze dried meat. They have large amounts of dog food, um, things like that. Maybe look into that, okay? So that you have certain amenities available to you that would be in that you could just add water. Okay. So those are going to be the key factors, I think. And like I said, we may end up doing a part 2 to this video, but the very last thing I really want to lead you with: fear makes you make decisions that are not beneficial long term. That's why I don't watch the news. I don't invest my energy into that because there's a lot of fear around that. Okay, follow your guidance, focus on where you're going and what you would potentially need. How might you get out of certain situations? Just think about these things a little bit. It's not go spend a ton of money on stockpiling things that might last you a little while, but what are you going to do long term? Think about that. Okay, what could you do long term? Are you spending your money on the right things? Candle wax. Do you know a beekeeper? um are you a beekeeper that you could potentially be adding that to the community that you might be investing yourself in, that you would be able to trade honey, beeswax, things like that, for the people who might need that? So, do you know anybody who does woodwork, smithing, smith work, iron workers, um, people who have assets that may not be what you would need in regular society? Those are the gifts of community. So, I hope this was helpful for you. If you have questions, please let me know. If I've touched on anything you want to talk about a little bit further, please let me know about that. Yeah, and so happy off griding, folks. Bye.